Happy Thursday, wherever you are in the world. Here we go.
The film you are about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter. Everything owes its existence solely and completely to sound.
I wanted to show that because to just demonstrate that's all real. All the effects on fire, water, matter from sound and music. And I know it's not exactly a scientific experiment, but through the lens of music, we can see how much music can impact matter. And we're made of all these elements. So, I won't go into all the specific cellular effects of music and all the specific effects on our neurochemicals. I'll, touch upon the benefits of these. My intention today is focus on more how you can specifically use music for yourself and in your lives and give you some ways to do that. I will give you a little bit of background. And but I just thought that that's a great example of how when we're talking about energy, how can imagine if it's affecting matter in that way, how it's affecting us. And we're going to get into how it affects our perception, our thoughts, our belief systems, and how we can leverage it to do that in the most positive way. So that's one of our goals for today. So just before we get started, so why, and all this, self-mastery, performance work, why do I bring in music? Well, naturally it's where I've spent 40 years of my career, but I actually started primarily in music because of what it could do to help people thrive and survive difficult times. And we're in the middle still of a pretty challenging time for a lot of people. And I'm still very committed to helping people during that time with, all these different practices. We've gone through a lot of energy practices in the previous courses and high performance techniques that we can apply to our life to really thrive in the best of times and in the most challenging of times. And music is like that secret sauce that you can add to almost anything. Like that special thing in your kitchen in the cupboard that you can add to almost any recipe, and you get a whole new level of, you can just up level whatever you're creating. And for me, from when I was a kid, it was a survival tool for me in the streets of Detroit, which at the time looked very much like the world today, with a lot of collapse in the economic structures and the collapse in the school systems and the corruption in the government. And so I thought, I would be doing actually an injustice if I didn't help people apply it in their practices today as one of their tools in the toolkit. And then as I, grew and went throughout my career, obviously music was a big tool for me, a big driver for me. It was always, how do I help other people leverage music? How do I learn as much as I can about how music affects our perception? How do I leverage it through my film and music career over years of reaching hundreds of millions of people and trying to shift their minds into more positive states and perceptions? And how do you apply it on an individual level through my work with exponential medicine for Singularity University and all the other modalities that I've worked in the health and performance space? How do you apply this and how does it work? So that's been and continues to be a dedication and a fascination of mine, and maybe why some of you are on this call today. So I'm going to move. The next section I wanted to talk about. We need all the tools we can get in our tool bag. So, especially in times like this. So why not use one that we already love? Which is music. So there's music and then there's sound. So when we talk about music is a part of sound, sound is a part of music. So they're not exactly one and the same. I'm going to focus more on music as a tool today, but sound in and of itself is a technology and a science that truly affects our system and affects our health and our well-being and our potential. So we want to look at, pay attention to both of those in our life and our work. Today we're going to focus more on the music aspect of sound, which has a little, because it has more dimensions to it in terms of music actually activates more areas of the human brain than any other known stimuli than sound alone. But each one has very specific applications, and there's some great work being done in the field of sound, and we could do a whole approach on that alone. The quality of the sound through which you experience the world and these ears, which are not necessarily the earbuds, but the ears are one of the most amazing technologies we have in the human system for experiencing the world. It's our first line of defense, and they don't turn off. So now, just a little bit on the health side, because that's, I'm a music and health expert for a number of platforms, and I might as well give you a moment of background on that. So if we look at areas that in medicine that we're already using music, there's many of them. There's pain management, anxiety, depression, PTSD, neonatal care, speech therapy, hospice, autism, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's and dementia. And the practices and the documentation around music as a modality for treating health goes, it may go back further, and it probably does, but as far back, it's documented as far back as 2600 BC in China, and the ancient Chinese symbol for music and the ancient Chinese symbol for medicine are fundamentally the same, except for a very small difference. Today I work a lot in the areas of the new research, and we're trying to get more behind the research so we can validate and bring music through technology and other ways into the healthcare system, into your personal development, into the human potential field, and in measurable ways. And there's some really exciting stuff. We'll touch more on that towards the end. But if we don't even look at medicine, but we look at what we're focused more on today, which is optimizing our own potential and optimizing human health, music is hugely powerful in the areas of athletic performance and meditation, focus, longevity, sleep, emotional intelligence, human bonding, meaning relationships, creativity, and flow. So learning to optimize music, just like learning to optimize your breath, but not just as a source of entertainment, but as a real practical tool in your life, is a very valuable and fun thing to do, because we all like, or most of us like, music. So I'm gonna do another. I'm gonna roll another little clip here, but this one, if you don't have a pencil or something to write with, or you don't want to type, you can also type into the chat. I'm going to play a couple of clips to demonstrate music and perception and what it does to your subconscious. And I'm going to ask you, each time I play the clip, I'm going to play the same scene from a movie I did. I'm going to play it 3 times, and it's going to be about 35 seconds long each time, 40 seconds. And each time I want you to answer 2 questions about the main character, and there's only one character, so that won't be hard to figure out who he is. I want you to ask, 1, who is he? Like, just give him an identity, anything, it doesn't matter. Don't think about it too hard. I'm gonna pause for a moment at the end of each clip so you can write this down, and if you want to share it in the chat, it'd be a lot of fun for other people to see too. And 2, what's he up to? Like, what's his game? What's going on with this guy? What's he scheming about or celebrating? What's going on in his life? So 1, who is he, and what's he up to? Okay, take a moment and so who was this guy, if you caught that, and what do you think he was up to? And share it in the chat if you can. That would be great for people to see. It's kind of a fun exercise. When I've done this with kids, and it's pretty amazing. They have pretty vivid imagination, so the stories they come up with are pretty incredible. So let's, okay, you got it? So we're going to run the next one. And you're going to answer the same question. Pay attention while you're watching. Who is this guy, and what's he up to? So before we hit the next one, I want you to just answer the same question. Who is this guy, and what's he up to? And now you got a tease on the next one, so hopefully it didn't throw you. We're going to run the third one. This is the last one, so answering the same question. Here we go.
Sinner, hear what I say. Oh, sinner, you've been staying out too late. 'Cause Lord, you know it's one day of praying and 6 nights of fun. You better believe that the odds are going to heaven. Oh, 6 to 1. 6 to 1. Well, you know what I mean. Well, you better come to me, 'cause the odds are not on your side.
So I see a couple of notes in the chat. It's fun, so you can kind of compare, but I think the overall theme you get, that music actually changes the narration in our mind. Like, this is how I spent 30 years in Hollywood and working with leaders around the world to design stories and using the subconscious narrative of music to have people define for them, without them knowing it, how they would feel about a particular person, about a particular topic, about a particular... And we can do this, and it's happening to us all the time. Some for good, some maybe not so for good. But imagine that if it does this to us on the silver screen, it's doing it in all areas of our life. When you're sitting in a restaurant, when you're in a club, music is programming us. Music is changing the way we see and experience the world, and we can take command of that. Not always, but most of the time we can take command of that. So we're going to move on a little bit. We're going to go back to the idea of what the human potential area that I talked about before, and how do you amplify yours through music. So I'm not sure, not everybody on here I can see was part of the earlier programming we did on energy, but we really looked at like the 7 high performance habits of optimizing your energy so you can fulfill your purpose and make it through these challenges of these times and really show up fully. So you don't have that list in front of you, but I'm just going to give you a slight example of how music, like I said before, can kind of up-level each one of these areas, or help you in each one of these particular other modalities that we use to optimize our life. And so the first one, the number one for all high performers, is breath. And because music helps, we can actually use music, for one, to help regulate and slow down our breathing. Like if you're going to do a deep breathing exercise, or you're going to go into a meditation where you're using breathing, or you're going to slow down your breathing and your heart rate, which is tied to your breathing rate, you can do so using music to help you do that. Now, I'm just going to move through these. The next habit is what we eat, right? And I call it eat and drink. We talked about a sound diet. You can think of sound as food, but you can also use music to optimize your connection and your energy of food. Now that's maybe, and there's different ways in which you can do that, but one is to simply, focus on eating when you're eating so your body can optimally digest, and make it more of a ritual, like enliven your life, like make your life a little bit more of a masterpiece and less of a routine. And choose some music that you can eat to. I mean, some of the, kings of the courts used to hire musicians to play specific music to help them with their digestion during eating. Now, I'm not going to get into all that, but there are ways that we can actually use music to celebrate, which is what I call the mode of eating and drinking. We do, we're very lucky to be able to do that. There's a lot of people who can't choose what they eat, but we can choose what we eat and how we spend our energy and that time. So moving, exercise, well, everybody's pretty familiar with this. If a lot of people, have playlists for their exercise, but there's reasons for this, that this works, is that, the area in the brain that controls our motor coordination also has some control over our emotions, and that's affected by music. So we can shift our neurochemicals and motivate and help regulate our motor functions through music at the same time. So really optimizing those playlists and optimizing that for movement and for motivation is, has a real science to it, and it obviously makes it a lot more fun and a lot easier to do. Sleep. So there's, sleep's a big one of late, and it's not so much about music for when you sleep. It's this, hour or 2 hour preparation time for sleep. And music can be really great to help you wind down, relax, let go of the day. And it can also, I also look at it for waking up, because part of sleeping and how well we sleep is how we wake up. So throw out that old alarm clock that alarms you out of bed, which is not what you want to do to reset your brain in the beginning of the day. Choose some music to start your day with, and I think try it for a couple of weeks, and I think you'll see a pretty big difference. Meditating, some people meditate with music, some people meditate without music. If we had more time, we would do a meditation to music during this. If you're interested in that, let me know. We can talk more about it, or we can look at doing that. It's a great gateway. Several of my teachers say there is no journey, there is no deep journey into the inner world without sound and music to help us. So try music to help you with your meditation. Most guided meditations are set to music. Some practitioners don't think we should use music, so I won't get into that. I'm not going to debate it. Whatever is your process, but I invite you. And when I say meditate, I also drop focus into that area, because music can be used specifically to help us focus. And there's specific companies like Focus at Will, and there's lots of playlists on Spotify and Apple Music that are categorized by focus or meditation that you can use as a starting place. In terms of relationship, connections, so the next high power, high performance technique is connection or area to optimize, and that's human connection and relationships, and music's great for that. I mean, you can see easily in a group setting, it's hard to have a social event without some sort of, it makes a big difference to have music. It changes the complete mood of the room. But at an individual communication base, it's a great tool, especially for crossing difficult areas of generations. So I can ask you about a very difficult time, or a child can ask their grandparent, or you can ask your parent who you have a hard time to talk to, and you can actually get inside of the emotional areas of their, or a better understanding when I say get inside, of their lives by asking them about the music that they were listening to at that time. I don't remember who said the quote, but somebody said the quote, if you tell me what music you listen to, I'll tell you who you are. So rather than be judgmental about people's music, it's the same with our kids. If you really want to understand them, don't just find out what it is in that music or what they love and why, because that connection breaks down a lot of resistance, and you can actually learn a lot about the persona and who they are and build a bond without having it to be so forward. And then the last one is to create. We're creative beings. I talked about that. So music is has been used as a tool for some of the highest level creatives. You've heard about it, about Einstein used music to help him in his creativity. Neil Turok, one of the leading theoretical physicists, he says creativity is at the heart of everything, and he also says the basis of physics is a lot of it's math, and he says music and math are the same. So, as a creative tool, I can't think of, it's probably one of the most powerful ones. Not only creating music, but even using music to help you create and to open up your mind into new pathways. So again, it allows us, we can use it, again, focus comes into play here. So if you're, want deep work blocks and you want to use music to create deep work, then you can actually choose music for focus. And but the difference with music for focus is a little bit different, because when we're using music for motivation, we're using it to activate certain neurochemicals and to activate our system and to get us up and inspired, or release serotonin to get us relaxed or whatever. And lyrics can help with that. But when we're doing focus work, we actually want to neutralize the lymphatic brain, the lymphatic system, and try to avoid those emotional rushes that take us out of our deep focus. So it's a different thing. So typically in focus work, we don't use lyrics, and we use so instrumental music and music that's non-arousal, is what we would say. There's differences around that. But either way, I just kind of ran through this list of 7 things: breathe, eat, move, sleep, meditate, connect, and create. What we call the fundamentals, extra fun, by adding music, and music's just a secret sauce to up-level all of those. Now, you can think of music as like an energy drink to your brain. because it activates more areas of the human brain than anything else, and to your ears, right, which are always open. So why not put something good into them? So how do we apply this? Let's get a little bit more practical. So hopefully you got that pen and paper. If we had a full day workshop, we'd get into doing this, and if I was doing it over an 8-week course with you, we'd refine this, but we're going to talk about power playlists. Now, playlists, since streaming music has been happening for the last several years, are pretty familiar to everybody, and most of you probably use them to some area of this design. But what I invite you to do is to take that to another level. And so I use this acronym called FIRM, F-I-R-M, which means music to focus, music to be inspired by, to relax, or chill out, meditate, wind down, and move. Focus, inspire, relax, and move. So rather than doing your playlist by my favorite 70s hits or, Friday night's party, I invite you to really create your own focus playlist. Now, you can also use the ones that exist. You can use the companies that exist. The one thing to realize about music, even with all the science and evidence behind it, that musical preference and our preconceptions of how music affect us as much, often as much, and sometimes more than actually the music itself. It's like many things. So everybody's going to have, there's no one, I can't say everybody, well, what's the best meditation music? Or what's the best music to focus? We have kind of best practices, guidelines, but until you're measuring on your own, with you as the number one subject, with your own preferences and backgrounds, you're not going to actually know. So I invite you to do that. And as we get in a little further down, we're going to talk about ways that we're going to be able to measure that in really, really cool ways going forward. So I would write down in the heading of something, you're going to create a playlist for focus. Add, go on Spotify, go on iTunes, pick 2 or 3 pieces you like, and see if they help you focus. Now, maybe again, like you're already using this, and maybe it's just something you can refine. And then inspire. So what really, I have an inspired playlist for when I wake up, and I have and certain inspired playlists for when I really want to shift my mood and shift my neurochemical state, if you want to put it in a neuroscience way. And so I invite you, so what are, songs, music that inspires you, really lifts you up, puts you in that space of, yes, okay. And then relax, is looking at music that helps us, meditate, wind down at the end of the day. Now, these last 2 are going to have a lot of preference in them. So I invite you to start to build these playlists as individual playlists. And then move is movement. Like we said, there's a link between the motor skill, part of the motor cortex of the brain, and emotions, and then music. So refining your movement, your exercise playlist, your dance playlist, whatever it is you do for movement on a regular basis. If you were a Olympic skater, you would be doing this to a science, to the split second. Same way that we would do in a film score. You would know where you're going to be, what heart rate you want to be at, what emotion you want to feel at any particular time along the course of this timeline of this playlist. You don't have to get that specific about it, but you can, and it will be a game changer. And don't, the one thing I would say is don't think that adrenalizing exercise, like adrenalizing music, like pumping up, pump into things where you're already pumping up your system, are actually going to help you perform better. And I can share some experiments and some studies that have been done around that. But sometimes, slower, inspiring music that help regulate your system a little bit more while you're pushing it so hard, actually can have a better performance outcome. So those are the 4 playlists I inspire you to build. If you want to share, again, with that you're doing this, anybody you're doing with it in the chat, that if this is helpful, that would be great. And playing and singing music is another way to do all of these things and kind of take it to the next level, because it is really when you are playing and singing music that you totally activate all the systems. Listening, you have to be very mindful of your listening to get an full activation that you would like to get. But if you add movement, you add performance, you add reading, you add other cognitive functions, other physical functions, then you're really going to get the optimal effects. So I was going to talk a little bit about music and our memory in the brain, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to cut that back a little bit. But I will say, typically the music that we listen to in our formative years is, between say 11, 12 through our teens up to about 21, is the music that forms in our memories and through which we can return to at any time to activate those memory centers. And for people who have dementia or Alzheimer or facing cognitive decline of some sort, these are great music's an amazing tool to help them reconnect those memory centers that can't be done by anything else. Now, I can't say it's going to have a permanent effect, but using it and preparing that for yourself, and or using it as a tool to make a connection or to support your loved ones who may be going through one of those challenges. If you're interested in more of that, I've written a lot about it, and please reach out. I can give you some specific ways to use it. So we talked a little bit already about music and relationships. There's some great stuff you can do with your families to connect, to share music for the holiday, create a family playlist where everybody contributes 2 or 3 songs and has to tell a story of why that song, they love it, what it is. It creates some great family bonding. We talked about the cross-generation communication tools to get to know each other better. I want to share one piece that is more future-looking, but is already here. It's what I call the hearables revolution. It's what I write about for Forbes and talk about most recently in the last couple of years for exponential medicine. And if you don't know what hearables are, it's basically wearables like these moving into our ears. So I'm going to just put up 2 really quick, maybe 3 slides and fly through them. So, there's a development in what we call the hearable space, where we're going to be able to take things that these earbuds, these ear products, and where they used to listen to music, make phone calls, they'll still be able to do all these practical things, but now you'll be able to do a whole slew of other things, as you can see on this list on this slide, including, filter out noises, common among most of the products, isolate a voice in a room if you're trying to have a conversation, monitor your own emotions and your own voice in real time, and help you sleep, help you measure biometrics in real time. So for the first time, we're basically going to be able to listen to music and or sound and in real time know exactly what effect that is having on our whole on our whole system, on our biology, on our mind, on our and we'll be able to look at that so we can optimize, like, what was it that we were listening to, or what sound was taking place, what music was in our environment at the time when we had this particular state that we wanted to regain, like flow, or cut back, like anxiety. And you'll be able to optimize and then create those states on an individual basis by using these real-time metrics. And this is where we're moving towards, and you'll be able to do it between software on your cell phone and a very highly sophisticated set of earbuds. So I'm going to go to the next slide here, and I just want to give you a sense of what this means. We talk about exponential technologies at Singularity University and exponential medicine, and these are things like nanotech, which allows us to make really small technology, like those sensors that can go through your bloodstream or be in your earbuds and pick up all kinds of data, big data. So all these basically exponential technologies on the left of the screen are at a stage now where we can put these amazing audio enhanced supercomputers into our ears and connect them to this closed loop system that monitors and responds in a personalized and scientific specific way to our current states. It's an amazing evolution that's coming. I can't get into it that deep here. There's again, this is what I write about on Forbes, so there's some pretty cool articles there, and a lot more on my blog space. And I'm happy to talk to anybody more about it. I'm really excited about this space. Now on the right side of this, these are the things that we can measure through the human ear. So imagine that we're taking this input like music, and then we're getting real-time feedback in your heart rate, and your heart rate variability, in your activity, meaning your movement, and your EEG, and your, like we said before, your emotional state, and vagal tone, which is regulating your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, galvanized skin response, so temperature, blood oxygen levels. So we can get so much data out of the human ear that, again, this is a really exciting space. I'm going to jump ahead to the next slide here, and this is just some of the products. I'm not going to go through them. You know many of the brands. We're in the early stages of a very fast-moving marketplace and industry for a number of reasons, which, again, if you're interested in this, I can share some of my specific talks and or articles regarding the hearable space. So we're going to let these go so we can move on to you guys. I'm going to just share one more video, and then we're going to go into some question and answers. So we've covered a number of areas. Hopefully they were helpful, where you can optimize music and why it will help you optimize your potential and help you manage and thrive in your life. I want to, I'm also very committed to the future, not just the future of technology, but the future leaders of our world. And so I want to share this little video. Basically, this is of a film I have coming up, but it's more specifically, it's about a pilot program we did for at-risk 11 and 12-year-olds in the very screwed up LA Unified School System, and using music for life skill development.
The problem is that there's a crisis in education, and we're not providing kids with the resources and tools that are available to us and to them to help them address this crisis and to prepare them for a future that they're about to enter. It's very familiar to me because it looks the same as when I was a kid growing up in Detroit, 12 years old, when the economy collapsed, the school system collapsed, the city was going into crime and disorder, and I found music. I was lucky.
Government always comes in with these kind of elephant gun fixes, right? And so everything shifted to English and math, English and math, English and math, and the arts kind of got lost in the process.
About it. I thought, okay, well, let's create a movement that'll help kids regain ownership in their future. Like, give them the tools where they can take control of the things that they need to be in control of to really survive and tap into their creativity, tap into their emotional intelligence, be able to regulate their reactions and emotions and relationships, and to be really adept at these skills and to do it in a actually fun and meaningful and deep way with something that they already love, which is music.
Playing music activates more areas of the human brain than any other known activity. Would you like to see how that works?
Every dimension of learning, what we call super learning, involved physical work, so physical playing, muscle coordination, some exercise, mindful movement, moving meditation, all supported by music. And the whole thing had all these radically different, ever-changing components, and anybody watching it was kind of off the hook.
I don't think music as a standalone. I mean, music is great in and of itself, but I always think of music as an integrated part of whatever we're doing. And in that, whether it's the soundtrack to a film or the soundtrack to your life or the soundtrack that helps get young people and or leaders engaged and motivated and focused in a way that helps them fulfill their potential, so we can have a better society and a better world in the future, this is what music can do, and this is the way I want it to be able to help you.